Greetings, Cubs fans. It is Matt Mervis Day. It is officially here. I know everybody's been like super hype about it. I got the obvious shirts 120 game clock hat on today. And look, I went ahead and repurposed my Jason Hayward number 22. So we got Matt Mervis working here. Let's go. Let's get it, Cubs. Let's fly the W today. Go Cubs, go. I see that like they're already getting everything started. He's greeting his new teammates at the major league level here. Obviously, you got to meet a lot of those guys at spring training, but it's just not the same. First time at Wrigley, and we are pumped and excited to get into it. It's a great day for the Cubs' future. This is a really promising young team. There's some veteran leadership there too, but this team is very young and gives me, like I said in the season preview, gives me some of those 2014, 2015 vibes where I'm kind of excited to see where this team goes. We're at the roughly 20% point of the season, gone through about a fifth of the games. We'll be there at the end of this game here today, 32 games in, and with about 130 to go. So with that eye towards the future, let's dip a little bit into nostalgia and the past. I come at this as a Cubs fan from Louisiana, from South Louisiana, who grew up on Harry Carey and Steve Stone and Gary Matthews and Brian Dayette and Keith Moreland, Jody Davis, all those guys, Leon Durham and Les Lancaster. I mean, you know the names. If you're a legit Cubs fan from way back, you know what I'm talking about. Let's tap into a little bit of that nostalgia and bring it into the Wayback Machine. Let's go. Wrigleyville South is here. Oh, shoot. I hit the wrong button. Man, well, here you go. Welcome, everyone. It is Matt Mervis Day. Let's get it. Justin Steele going to the mound today for the Cubs. Let's look at this lineup. Let's just jump right to it. Let's get into this lineup for today. So exciting. This is a day a lot of Cubs fans have been waiting for. Matt Mervis is finally up playing at Wrigley, and he's finally in the starting lineup. Here we go. This is our lineup for today. Of course, you've got Horner and Swanson leading things off. That 1-2 punch up the middle at second and short. Both batting from the right side. Then you switch it up with Ian Happ coming from the left side, a switch hitter, but with a righty going today for the Marlins. You're going to see Happ hitting from the left side, at least to start this game. Then Suzuki bringing it in from right field, from the right side. Bellinger in the 5-hole, playing center field from the left side. And then Mancini gets the DH duties today. Mervis is going to take the spot at first base. Right-handed throwing, but left-handed hitting first baseman. Tearing it up at AAA the last couple of years, really just tearing up every level of the minors last year, and then kept things going this year with a 962 OPS in 2023 at the AAA level. And then you got Patrick Wisdom, of course, at third base. I think that's huge. This is an underrated spot to have Wisdom because you can't just pitch around Matt Mervis and try to get him to chase. Because if he's up there and he's disciplined and he's showing that same batting eye that gave him that 16 or so percent walk rate at the minor league level so far this year, whereas strikeout and walk totals are roughly the same. You're going to have to pitch to Patrick Wisdom, possibly with Mervis on base. And then, of course, Miguel Amaya, who made his major league debut yesterday, comes in batting ninth from the catcher spot with Yan Gomes on the IL in the concussion protocol. And Tucker Barnhart getting the day off, at least to start things here. Looking at how things shape up in the field here, of course, you got Happ, Bellinger, I'm sorry, how did I leave Mastroboni? I left that up there from earlier on in the year. My bad, folks. Well, anyway, it's Suzuki over there in right field, then Wisdom, Swanson, Horner, Mervis, and then Steele and Amaya in there. I don't know why I did that. That's an error on my part. My fault, folks. But what do you guys think? Like, what's the feel here? We've got one of the hottest pitchers in baseball, Justin Steele, just getting it done for the Cubs, going to the Hill today. And Matt Mervis gets to finally make that major league debut. And I wonder, like, is this putting a little bit of undue pressure on him with the slump that the team is in? I kind of would have liked it to be under different circumstances, maybe where the team wasn't coming off a 1-6 road trip where they lost 5 one-run games. But at the same time, I don't know, you kind of feel like it's needed. This team needs a shot in the arm offensively. But we're at that point in the season where I think there's enough of an expectation. I read a really good article. Patrick Mooney put this out in the Athletic about Nico Horner kind of having this 30,000-foot view of, yes, you get frustrated with these one-run losses. Yes, it sucks. You want to win all these games, and you can't just it can't just be, no, the process, trust the process all the time. It does actually get to you. It can be frustrating, but also kind of being able to take that step back, because let's face it, even with the struggles that this Cubs team has been through in the last week, and really, if you look at it, started off 11-6, they've gone 4-10 since to sit there at 15-16 now, just under 500. They're really being helped out by the fact that everybody else in the division is playing terrible baseball right now. The Pirates have lost 4 in a row. We kind of expected that. They were really playing above their heads. But the Brewers going into the tank a little bit in this same time frame has really helped the Cubs stay within striking distance of them. The one shocker out of all this, look, we're all Cubs fans. We can't stand the Cardinals. It does not pain me to see them at the bottom of the standings, not just in the National League Central, but in the National League overall. There's no team with a worse record in the National League than the St. Louis Cardinals. Nothing would make me happier than to see that, but I'm shocked. I got to be honest. That lineup is too good to be playing this poorly, and I know that everybody had some questions about their pitching staff coming into this season, but this is ridiculous, guys. And they're still, even as poorly as they've played, they're still sitting there only 7 games out of the wild card. And I know it sounds stupid, but they're only 10 games out of first. And when you look at who's ahead of them, being 8.5 back of Milwaukee is probably more daunting than being 10 back of Pittsburgh, to be perfectly honest. But so the question then comes, so how did the Cubs get here? How did we get to this point where we're sitting at 15-16 and we kind of have higher expectations for where this team should be? It's frustrating that these one-run losses are happening, because we know that there have been some opportunities. Yesterday was a prime example. 2nd and 3rd, nobody out, don't even get a run across. Bellinger strikes out. I think he just kind of waved through one that I think he thought he was going to get something else, and he was just trying to fight it off. And it actually kind of snuck up on him where he didn't think he was going to get a cookie like that. He should have crushed that ball, and I think he's frustrated with himself. But then, Nelly comes up, he strikes out as well, and then you get a pop up. It's been that kind of little stretch here for the last week or two for the Cubs. So you start to wonder, like, okay, well, are they playing? Is that 15-16 record misleadingly good, or is it misleadingly bad? And I'm going to show you some numbers that make me think this is actually, I think, where they are right now. I know a lot has been made of like the run differential. It's not just about the run differential, because run differential can be skewed in some ugly ways by some lopsided victories. You could have a couple of 10, 12 run wins and really pad that stat. And then if you lose some close games, it can make you look a lot better than you actually are. But this team has actually been putting it together pretty well throughout this season. So let's look at how exactly that's manifested itself. This is the overall Major League Baseball rankings with respect to batting average. And I know batting average is not the end all be all, but this is, if you're going to put the ball in play, you want to get hits, right? It's not just about on base and OPS, but we are going to get into those as well. But the number 3 overall batting average behind only the Rays and the Red Sox. Then you go to on base percentage, and there you are in 4th place with only the Braves sneaking in ahead of you in that top 3. But you're right on the heels of some really good lineups in terms of your overall offensive production. Let's go to slugging. 6th in the majors in slugging. This lineup has been, and these numbers have taken a hit over the last couple of weeks because the Cubs have been in a funk. But these numbers are still here even after this slump and this offensive lull that they're hoping to get a shot in the arm with Matt Mervis in the lineup today. Well, let's go to the overall OPS, and you're still naturally you're going to be in that 6th spot because we went through the metrics that lead into that number, and so it only stands to reason that you'd still be roughly in that 6th spot in the majors in terms of OPS. And I mean, look at the teams that are ranked ahead of the Cubs. This is not a lineup that I think a lot of people were expecting this type of production from. So let's just call it what it is. Granted, they may be out to an early hot streak that will cool off. We've seen a little bit of that cool off here, but Matt Mervis coming up, and then Christopher Morel just kind of waiting in the wings as the next guy in line to be called up is something that I think we can look forward to some big production. What I think the next move you're probably going to see is unless somebody gets hurt and you get like an extended DL stint, you're going to end up having the Eric Hosmer conversation come up very soon. I think in the next couple of weeks, maybe a month and a half, you're going to see the fish or cut bait time with Eric Hosmer. The Cubs got him on a really cheap deal, and I think they're milking it for every bit that it's worth, because once you pull that plug, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, it's over. Hosmer's gone when you let him go. So they want to make sure that they do things right and that they keep him around as long as they need to. He's a good veteran presence. I was saying in the and shout out to the Cubs Zone chat, but I was saying in there that he kind of reminds me a little bit of Miguel Montero and David Ross, old Grandpa Rossi, on that 2016 team when Wilson Contreras came up, and you kind of saw the writing on the wall. Okay, look, this is the way things are going to have to be now. Like, this guy is the future at the position. So you're going to get your veteran presence. And with Ross, it was more of, he was the better defensive, better framing, and handled the pitchers better. And he was John Lester's personal catcher, all that good stuff. So you're going to have some elements of that are going to be different between him and Hosmer, because you don't have that framing, and the first base position isn't as important to the pitching staff. But I still think there's a reason to keep Hosmer around because of the presence that he brings and of what he can provide for Mervis in that spot. And plus, if Mervis struggles a little bit, you can give him a day off or two. And you've got some capable guys who can step in, Mancini and Hosmer. And you can even bring, if Rios makes his way back up to the major league level, you can mix him in there too. There's some options that you have, but getting rid of Hosmer, once you do it, that's it. Like, this isn't something where you can bring him back if Mervis struggles. So I like the way that they let Mervis kind of get his feet underneath him and then get going before bringing him up. So that's the offense. What about the pitching staff? Well, we all know this has been one of the best. Here we go, ERA. One of the best starting pitching performances that we could have possibly expected out of this rotation, because we definitely had some question marks with, how healthy and how reliable was Drew Smyly going to be in that 4th spot, and how was Hayden Wesneski going to respond in the 5 spot. And some little bumpy outings early on have really been kind of pushed back into distant memory at this point, because they've been pitching so well lately. Smyly definitely better than Wesneski, but Wesneski has still been getting the job done. But look at this, the 7th overall ERA in baseball. And why is that? Well, because the Cubs have they're tied with the Yankees for the 3rd best whip in the majors and the fourth best batting average against at 225. The crazy thing is, what were we told about this team? This team was going to be so good defensively up the middle, and defense was going to be everything with the catchers that they had, and with Swanson and Horner locked up the middle for that double play combo and their elite defense and Gold Glove ability, and then Bellinger in center. Well, look at this, 14th in the majors in fielding percentage. And I know this doesn't take into account range, but this is just some of the easiest numbers I could pull up, because let's face it, we've seen it. There have been they've left much to be desired on a few innings that they have extended by making some either poor fielding plays or some bad throws and just not getting it done, not converting outs that are there. And they started off really hot throwing guys out on the bases, but they have cooled off recently, and some teams have gotten some steals off of them here recently. But it's almost like some of the stuff that they are doing really well right now, you can expect some regression to the mean. And I get it. I know everybody, that's a big deal now that sabermetrics has kind of taken over and played the role that it has played in how people view baseball and expectations and how they manage their expectations. But I think a lot of times people mistake regression to the mean as only negative regression. There's also positive regression. And I think there's some of these particular numbers and some particular individuals' performances that I expect some regression upward to their expectations, and to the mean that we should expect with that. Because I think we have a few guys who have been underperforming, and especially on the defensive end, I expect the Cubs to play better defense going forth throughout the rest of the season. But this is going to be an exciting game. I'm pumped to see it, to see what this, getting back to Wrigley. It was a tough road trip. Going 1-6 on the road is never fun, especially when you wrap it up. I really thought, and I think I'm not alone, that the Cubs were going to get healthy against the Nationals, a very bad team. And for whatever reason, that they ran into some really good pitching performances, but they also helped some of those. One of the things that can be frustrating, for me at times as a fan who played the sport, not granted, not at the major league level, not at a high level like that, but I kind of lived off of playing inside out, going the other way. And when I pulled the ball, it was in some very specific instances. The rest of the time, I'm trying to hit the ball up the middle and the other way. And there have been some opportunities where you can see that these guys are pitching away and guys are still trying to pull it, and they're rolling over on the top of balls, easy double play balls, or they're just waving through pitches that if you're trying to go the other way, you have a better chance of making contact and making good, hard, solid contact and getting runners moving. Especially like we saw it in that situation yesterday, 2nd and 3rd, nobody out. You have got to get at least one run home. That's just unacceptable. And I know they know that. This is not something where I'm, talking to like I'm talking to the Cubs players like they don't know this. I think it's a source of frustration for them too. But it's just one of those things we have to recognize as fans, that there's reasons for it, and it can be frustrating for us, but it's frustrating for those guys too. These guys are human beings. So Matt Mervis making his debut today. I know there are a lot of high expectations. I want people to kind of temper those expectations, because he's a really good player and he's been mashing. But let's face it, like, he really burst onto the scene last year, and I think that's why they started him off at AAA this year, was because they're trying to make sure it wasn't some sort of one-hit wonder, that flash in the pan, that we're gonna have some struggles from him early in the season. So let him go back to AAA, what he's familiar with, and show that he can crush it again. That also proves to him, okay, yeah, I can do this. I belong. And now I think he's been kind of itching for that opportunity. And now that it's actually coming to fruition, I think he's going to be ready to step up to the occasion. But I want people to cool the jets and pump the brakes a little bit on what the level of expectation should be for this guy. This guy's not going to splash onto the scene and hit 3 home runs today. Well, he might, but I very seriously doubt it. I don't want you to expect that. Be very, very pleasantly surprised if something like that happens. But no, what we want to see is we want to see something that's akin to that Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber type of, because if you remember, Schwarber came up and he was really just like a hitting machine. He wasn't necessarily uh, crushing home runs left and right. He was getting on base a lot and a lot of singles, a lot of doubles, line drives, and just being very good, disciplined at the plate. It wasn't until his second year that he really and really like it was technically his third year because his second year Dexter Fowler blew his knee out. But his third year, 2017, where he actually started to come into that mammoth power mode. And really, like, I guess you could say it was like towards the end of that 2015 season where there was a lot of expectation for that. But what I want to see is just be better offensively than Eric Hosmer. And I don't necessarily even mean that it has to be where he's putting up gaudy numbers, but just if he's more of a threat and he's willing to be patient and wait for pitches he can drive, and then he's taking his walks, especially a day like today, like we already talked about it. You've got Patrick Wisdom right behind him, and then Miguel Amaya backing them up, and then you get right back to the top of the order. If Matt Mervis can be patient and just try to get on base so that Wisdom can drive him in, he's going to be very much worth the call up. And I think that's where we need to be focusing our attention. So where would I put the Cubs? I kind of pitched this as a Matt Mervis major league debut preview, but also a 20% of the way through the season Cubs report card. And I would say I'd give this Cubs team a B- at this point. That's kind of where my grade would be for them. Is they've exceeded expectations on a lot of fronts. I don't think anyone expected this team to be putting together the types of quality performances that they have on the level that they have. Because really, like, you win half of your one-run games because they have not come close to that. I think they're 3-8 in one-run games. If you win 6 out of those 11 instead of 3, now you're talking about this is an 18-12 team or somewhere in that neighborhood, 18-13 team, and you're right there with the Brewers, neck and neck for first place, second place in the division. And that's the type of quality that they've been putting out there. The biggest problem is you had Michael Fulmer blow a couple of saves. You had a couple other little bullpen hiccups. And then you've had some offensive deficiencies in the last couple of weeks where the Cubs just haven't been able to get runs home when they've had some prime opportunities, getting the bases loaded, getting runners at first and third, second and third with nobody out, and only being able to scrape one run across, if that. That's just not going to get it done. But you've got to continue to look at but they're getting those opportunities. They're just not cashing them in. So either one of two things is going to happen. They're going to stop getting those opportunities, or if they continue to get those opportunities, they're going to start cashing them in. So I'm fairly optimistic for where the trajectory of this team is, but we've got to give them that B- because while they are ahead of schedule, in my opinion, compared to where, there are a lot of people who thought this was going to be a well below 500 team, a 70, maybe 75 win team. I think this team still has a chance to not only finish above 500 by 5 or 10 games, but possibly even make the playoffs as a wild card. I think winning the division is going to be really, really difficult, especially if the Brewers get things right. But I think that winning the division is considerably easier at this point than I think a lot of people would have said it was before the season started, because as it stands right now, you're a solid 5.5 games ahead of the team that was everyone's favorite, almost everyone's favorite. I think there were some teams who saw the Brewers as the favorites for this year, but the St. Louis Cardinals are just tanking. So, you're a little bit ahead of the game there. So I feel pretty optimistic there. The B- comes in because they haven't been able to cash in those opportunities. They should be, an 18-13, maybe even 20-11 team after 31 games. But here we are at 15-16, struggling to get back to 500 against an okay Marlins team, but not a great Marlins team that they got swept by last weekend. So there's still a lot of work to do, and so that's why the B minus is there. Um, but let's look at the roster, the lineup, and the configurations. Just kind of see what we're looking at in terms of the depth of this team, where we have some injuries, and what we have to look forward to. So your outfield is Hat, Bellinger, Suzuki, but then you have Nelson Velasquez able to play all of those outfield positions. You got Trey Mancini, who can play the corner outfield positions. Wisdom, who could play the corner outfield positions if you absolutely needed to. So there's a lot of versatility on this team in the outfield. Hap could even move to center if necessary. He's played there before. Not ideal. More likely to see someone like Velasquez out there playing that position. Wisdom, Swanson, Horner, and Mervis across the infield. I think you'll see Mancini if there's a tough lefty. You'll see him, and you'll probably see Mervis sit out on a day like that. And then you've got Madrigal, who can kind of play anywhere and is a really good contact bat, and he's acquitted himself well this year. Let's face it. Tucker Barnhart, and Miguel Amaya at catcher right now, while Gomes is coming back from that concussion. He'll be back sooner rather than later, and that's going to be interesting to see what they do with the lineup when Gomes is back ready to play again. Is who gets knocked off of this offensive rotation here. So speaking of rotations, let's go to the pitching rotation, and there you have Marcus Stroman, Justin Steele, Jamison Tyone, Drew Smiley, and Hayden Wesneski. And you see over there on the left, you see Kyle Hendricks waiting in the wings. And we've seen a little bit from some guys down at the minor league level, and you see them over there. So we've got Brandon Hughes, who should be hopefully healthy in the next few weeks and able to rejoin the bullpen with Mike Fulmer, Brad Boxberger, Mark Leiter Jr., Julian Merriweather, Mike Rucker, Adbert Alzolay, Javier Assad, and Keegan Thompson. But some of the guys I'm really excited about, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to Bailey Thorne, but this kid is he's lighting it up. He went 1.1 scoreless innings. Again, I think it was 15 pitches last night at the AAA level. Just got called up to AAA. I think he is the number I saw today was he's faced 42 batters this season so far at multiple minor league levels. 42 batters. He has given up 3 hits. So, and he's a lefty. So there's some potential waiting in the wings to come and help out at the major league level in the bullpen. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think this team is probably a top of the rotation starter and like a lockdown, closer, or at least a better version of a late inning reliever, or maybe 2 away from being a legitimate contender. And I think you could probably say that they might need a bat as well, but I think I want to wait and see. And I mean, look, you got the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes coming up in this offseason, so you might get both. You might get the top of the rotation starter and the middle of the order stud bat all in one package. It's going to be an expensive package. It's going to be, I don't know, $50 million a year for 10 years or something. It's good. Like 10 years, 450, 500 million. I wouldn't be surprised. No, it's going to be a lot. I don't know how much exactly it's going to be, but he's going to pull a pretty penny. But that could be part of maybe why we've seen some of the austerity in the budget for the team the last few years. I know they have some other reasons, and the Ricketts like to play things tight, even though they have a lot more money than I think what they're willing to spend on this roster. It's still exciting, and that's where I think they are. I think they're probably a middle of the order bat, a top of the rotation starter, and a bullpen arm or 2 away from being like a World Series every year for the next 4, 5, 6 years contender. Because some of the pieces that they've locked up for that long-term run set this up to be another sizable window. Because I think a lot of people look at the 2016 World Series championship and they act as though, number one, they act as though that was it. And number two, they act as if the team just fell off a cliff afterwards. That team went to 3 consecutive NLCS. They were in the NLCS in 2015, lost, got swept by the Mets. Then they won the World Series in 2016, went back to the NLCS and lost to the Dodgers in 5 in 2017. And then, yes, I think I think we were all disappointed with how 2018, 19, and 20, how they ended up finishing those seasons. But that team was right there winning the division in all but one of the, I think 2019 was the only year they didn't win the division where they had to go and play in the wild card game. But this team was a solid World Series contender where they were in the conversation every year for 6 years, from 2015 all the way through to 2020. And then really like into 2021, they were in first place, had that combined no-hitter. And then I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise that they went into the tank and lost like 11 of 12 or 12 of 13 or whatever it was, because you had a lot of guys who were about to have their contracts expire, and they weren't going to sign all those guys again. So had they continued to contend, and they were in first place after that game, and then they just completely fell apart. And in a way, I say, thank God they fell apart, because that allowed them to offload some expiring resources who I know we all love them. I know we all love Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javi Baez. We love these guys, but look, man, the pieces that they got in return for guys who were not going to be on the roster, I think was very much worth it. And it wouldn't have happened if they had stayed in contention and been like a game or two out of first place, or maybe even leading the division. They would have felt compelled to further purge the farm system and go try to get whatever piece it was that they thought they needed to finish that run. And we all know, like we saw the way that team was set up in 2021. Yeah, like Trevor Williams and I don't even an older Jake Arrieta, who he pitched okay, but he was not himself. That needed to go the way that it went, because they needed to pull the plug the way that they did. So it was a pretty quick turnaround on this rebuild, and I'm excited with where things are and where things are going. Like I was telling y'all earlier, I don't know if you were here to see this, but I have already repurposed this old Jason Hayward t-shirt jersey into a Matt Mervis jersey. I'm going to be wearing that to Wrigley. I'm going to be in Chicago for the May 23rd game with the Mets. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm probably going to wear that thing there just because I think it's funny. But yeah, that's kind of where the way I see things right now. And you still have some guys, Ben Brown is another guy who could be ready to join the rotation if they need him later on in the season. Of course, like I said, you've got Kyle Hendricks, Cody Heyer, and Ethan Roberts, Brad Wick. Like there's some guys who could possibly Jeremiah Estrada, we've already seen a little bit of him. Adrian Sampson, Caleb Killian, I think we're probably not going to see him for a while. But Christopher Morel is another one who I think we're probably going to see sooner rather than later. I think the next big move is going to be to get Christopher Morel back up to the major league level and let him continue to do what he's been doing. Or what he did last year. The versatility that he offers across the infield and into the outfield makes him extremely valuable. And I think it's just a matter of finding the right time and the right place to insert him into the lineup and get him regular at-bats. That's the other thing. I think people who have been clamoring for Matt Mervis to get the call up, it didn't make sense to just throw him into the fire on opening day. And so if you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do? Have him sit the bench and play every third or fourth day and not really have any kind of rhythm or consistency? No, you let him go get every day at bats in the middle of the lineup at AAA and let him mash. And then you bring him up to the major league level when it's time and he's ready to just continue to mash. Because you're doing him and your team a disservice if you try to rush things, and letting Hosmer continue to be that mentor for him for the next, I don't know, couple of weeks to a month or two, I think is very valuable. And I see this being the sort of thing where Christopher Morel will get his call up when the time is right, and it'll make perfect sense. Don't forget, you still have, options with Nick Madrigal. You still have options with Nelson Velasquez. Like, there's some things that you can do where you can get all of these guys some major league playing time and keep them fresh and getting minor league at bats as well. But I think the future is very bright for this team, and that's where I'll end it. I give this club a B- thus far. I'm going to give another report card as we go further on down in the season. I'm going to try to do a little more regular podcasting with this. It's just been tough. Work has been crazy recently, so I haven't had the time or the opportunity to put shows out there. But I thank you, everybody, for coming in and joining. And I don't know, we've got a lot to look forward to. But as we look forward, I have to bring us back to the nostalgia, because every time I watch this, I put this little video together as my show open and close. It gives me goosebumps. So many just great moments that I remember from my childhood and from a few years ago, that World Series run. So enjoy. Go Cubs, go. Let's fly the W. Peace, y'all.